to a brand new week, the morning after the off-cycle elections over the weekend. Good morning, good evening, wherever in the world you're watching from. It's Business Morning, coming to you live from Channels HQ right here in Lagos. Let's get the top stories that set your agenda for today now. We'll see the Dangote Refinery says it has secured permits to process 300,000 barrels of Nigerian crude per day. Mr. Aliko Dangote made this known at an interview in Riyadh on the sidelines of the Saudi Africa summit, adding that the refinery will begin processing gasoline soon. So Dangote stresses that the refinery's first priority is to produce for the supply gasoline to Nigeria before exporting elsewhere, including the West African region. Let's get a quick check on the oil markets now. See, oil prices fell today, raising gains from Friday as renewed concerns over waning demand in the United States and China, coupled with mixed signals from the U.S. Federal Reserve, with dented market sentiments. Today we see price action there. Brent crude for January, that was down 61 cents, about 0.75% to $80.82 a barrel, while U.S. WTI crude futures for December it's at $76.56, down about 61 cents. Prices gained nearly 2% on Friday as Iraq voiced support for oil cuts by OPEC Plus, but lost about 4% for the week, notching their third weekly losses for the first time since May. And Nigeria's forex reserves reverse gains, settling lower for the first time in 4 weeks. Data from the central bank shows that gross reserves decreased by $44.39 million to $33.42 billion as at November the 9th. Meanwhile, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mr. Mohammed Idris, says the Saudi government has promised to provide a substantial deposit of foreign exchange to boost Nigeria's forex liquidity to support the ongoing forex reforms by the Central Bank of Nigeria. The Saudi Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, made the pledge on the sidelines of Saudi Africa Summit in Riyadh during a bilateral meeting with President Bola Tinubu. And the China Commodities Expo that ended last week, see the exhibition featured a wide range of products from different sectors, including agriculture, equipment, industrial machinery, building materials, power and renewable energy products, and more. See, the China Commodities Exhibition has been held annually since 2007 and serves as a platform for China-Africa Economic and Trade Cooperation and exchanges by fostering partnerships and promoting international trade. I would see the CCE contributes significantly to the development of the global business landscape. According to Folashade Ambrose Medem, Commissioner for Industry, Trade and Investment, Lagos State, the trade relationship between China and Nigeria is improving. Take a listen.
Nigeria, with its vast resources and dynamic workforce, has always been a keen advocate of partnerships that drive sustainable growth. In the same spirit, the China Commodity Expo Nigeria is not just an expo, but a unique opportunity for both Nigerian and Chinese businesses to further explore, connect, and collaborate. Nigeria is China's second largest trading partner in Africa, and China is the largest source of imports. In 2021, Nigeria-China trade reached $25.68 billion, rising 33.3% year on year.
Extremely important, not for China, but also for Nigeria, because you know that Nigeria is our very important strategic partner, and this expo, I can see, is the biggest expo after COVID-19. So I think that there are so many Chinese and Nigerian enterprises can make a discussion, and maybe they can sign a lot of contract. So I hope that this expo can help strengthening China-Nigeria mutual cooperation and our bilateral relations.
So our first conversation now. See, over the weekend, we had the Bayelsa, Imo, and Kogi off-cycle elections. These polls held outside the general elections schedule due to circumstances such as death, resignation, impeachment, annulment of elections by courts, and many more. Let's count the costs of these off-cycle elections. We'll also look at comments coming out of the Saudi Africa Summit. Joining us for this is Mr. Johnson Chukwu, MD, Cowrie Asset Management. Good morning. Great to have you.
Good morning, Larry. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. So before we get into the off-cycle elections conversation, we've had some critical announcements coming from the Saudi Africa Summit in Riyadh. One is the NGX targeting Aramco for a dual listing with the Saudi exchange. Talk to us about the prospects of this happening and the expected benefits for Nigeria.
Well, Larry, when I saw that piece of news, it was for me a leap of faith in the sense that if we can get Saudi Aramco listed on the Nigerian exchange, it will signpost great things. But I have my doubts, and those doubts are coming from this. Saudi Aramco, their cross-listing with Nigerian NGS today look attractive to them, given their market capitalization. Saudi Aramco's market capitalization is about 8.12 trillion Saudi Riyadh, about $1.16 billion. And Nigeria's NGS capitalization about $49 billion. So if Saudi Aramco's capitalization is about $2.16 trillion, and our Nigerian NGS capitalized to the tune of $49 billion, I wouldn't know how that will fit into a listing destination for them. But like I said, if it does happen, it's a great thing for us. Share price of Saudi Aramco at the close of trade on Friday, on Saturday, was about $9 per share, which by Nigerian standard, they also quite would be a highly capitalized stock. But in terms of returns, the company is doing well. It had a return of over $161 billion last financial year. So if it accepts to get listed here, it will be a source of joy for all of us. We can have the benefit of investing in Saudi Aramco, but on a balance, it's going to be a leap of faith, given the disparity between the market capitalization of that company and the market capitalization of Nigerian entire bourse.
Definitely, we'll be looking out for the prospects of that if it actually happens. But let's get into the off-cycle elections now. You know, after having the presidential and governorship elections earlier this year, would you say the economy has had a chance to recover, from that, and help us understand the costs and implications of elections to the Nigerian economy? We see the practice of no movement during elections. Let's see how critical it is for our elections to mature from this stage, where people can actually go about their businesses, and even when the elections are on, because we know we have that weekend economy, even though the elections happen on the weekend. Talk to us about this.
Thank you, Larry. I like the way you ended your question, because basic thing we are looking at, these election cycles have a definite effect on economic activities, particularly on the election day and pre-election day. We see a shutdown at the night of the pre-election day and a total shutdown on election day. So whatever economic activity takes place in that vicinity or that locality is put in suspense. And you did make reference, when are we going to mature away from that? I think that's the greatest challenge we have, because the truth is that we can't continue to do the same thing time and time again, irrespective of the fact that technology has gifted us with the benefit to have a seamless election without people going into the street, risking being killed. In the election in the 3 states, I think in each of the states, at least one soul was lost, which could have been avoided. Because today we have face recognition technology, we have biometric technology, we have iris recognition technology, we have several means we can recognize people without them going to a polling unit. And we have today, Nigerians vote on several social engagements, be it Big Brother show or whatever, without stepping out of their homes. And those votes are counted individually. So why can't we adopt technology today to make sure that our election becomes electronically conducted? Why must we continue in this archaic system of people lining up, casting their votes, not being counted, results sheet being snatched, handwritten, and then we are disputing election results time and time and again? So I think we need to change the narrative and push the government, the electoral bodies, to adopt technologies to make our election process easier to conduct, less time consuming, and less economic wastage.
And talking about costs at this time, we see about 18 billion naira earmarked in the 2023 supplementary budget for the Independent National Electoral Commission and to cover the off-cycle elections. And earlier this year, I would say about 305 billion. That was budgeted for the presidential and governorship elections earlier this year. Is this too expensive, or is this cost? Is it affordable for Nigeria this time? Can we afford this?
Okay, I take it from different perspectives. It's not the size of the amount that is spent that will be of concern to me. It's whether we are getting value for money spent. Having spent about 323 billion naira on elections this year, we should have matured or graduated to a point where election results are difficult to dispute. That when you lose, you know you have lost. And that even without raising a finger, you can reasonably say the elections were free and fair. It doesn't matter. I know Nigerians contest everything. Nigerians hardly accept that they've lost in any contest. But be that as it may, it's just like a game of football. If you play a football match and you lose to a superior team, you go and suck and go and look at how do I improve on my game, which is what it should be. If we advance our electoral process to the point that it is seamless, the electoral process can reasonably be called. And at that point, it doesn't matter how much we spend on that. The problem we have is that we doesn't seem that we're getting value for money. When in all the elections, people are contesting the outcome, we end up in almost all elections in court. The challenge is that amount spent is not in terms of absolute figure, it's whether we got value for it. And we need to review that expenditure. Look at how relevant they are and how did they contribute to the electoral process. And do we achieve the objective we set out to achieve? And if we didn't achieve that objective, or that objective is still in dispute, then we need to review our processes to make sure that we get value for money that we spend for our elections.
And talking about election spending, there's also that issue of, vote buying, voter inducement and all of that. And we have inflation right now, 26.72%. We're seeing projections, for the month, for the coming data we're expecting for inflation. We're seeing that projection from KPMG is coming at 30%. How do these elections, off-cycle elections, do they have any impact on, inflation numbers, coming from those states, where the polls are held?
Okay, we're basically going to speak at the realm of macroeconomic issues. When you have expenditures of government that is not coming from productive activities, that is, when you fund activities from ways and means, which means the federal government has borrowed from the central bank to fund elections. If that is the case, then you're going to have a liquidity impact of that, which could lead to further pressure on inflation. Beyond the 18 billion that was spent on supplementary elections or off-cycle elections, I think the government had budgeted about 2.17 trillion naira, which has been passed as supplementary budget. I understand from that, of that 2.16 trillion naira, 1.72 trillion naira would be by ways and means funding. That means that obviously the 18 billion was also by ways and means funding. So if that be the case, then the impact will be further pressure on price levels, because you're going to see excess money pursuing few goods, because this funding from the central bank is not backed by productive activities. That's on one part of it. The other part of it, we also recognize that when you spend money and you pay ad hoc workers and those people consume, if there's no improvement in productivity, of course, it could lead to inflationary pressure, but it also has a salutary effect on economic activities. If that consumption takes place within those localities, I mean, the ad hoc staff that we are not previously on employment are paid, and they spend it on that within those economies where the elections are held, then it could have a positive impact on economic activities and could lead to improvement in productive activities. So we must look at it from all those perspectives.
And definitely, election activities have an impact on the economy. Mostly at this point, we seem to be seeing more of a negative impact at this time. But talk to us on how we can, create some kind of hedge, or protect the economy from election activities in Nigeria. How can we achieve that?
You know, I had made reference to something like that, the election activities should be largely electronic based. Virtually every location has internet service. Most places have 3G services. The few places you don't have 3G services, we can cover them in the next 3 years. And we must reduce what this manual processes. And that way, we guide against the negative impact of the election while we optimize the benefit, the positive benefit of an election. We have adopted participative democracy, so it has a cost. So we must recognize that the cost of conducting elections is cost of having participatory democratic system. But we can improve on the effectiveness of those cost expenditures and make the gain value for money. We must improve on electoral process that losers and winners, we have no doubt on the integrity of the election, and we do not have to get to a point where all elections are adjudicated and decisions are taken by the judges. That, for me, will improve our electoral process. The National Assembly has a timeline, enough significant time headroom to go through a process of amendment of the Electoral Act. The executive arm has the timeline to go through a process of amendment of the Electoral Act. We need to do this for the interest of the country, so that the elections provide us a veritable platform for selecting our leaders.
Looking at the conduct, of the elections over the weekend, do you think it will inspire confidence, with domestic and, foreign investors?
Well, remember, this is off-cycle elections. 3 states, elections were conducted in 3 states. Economically, those 3 states are not the most critical states. But beyond that, what investors are looking at, have we learned from our previous mistakes? Were there improvement in elections that we had in those 3 states? And this morning now, the morning of Saturday foretell what we should expect in 2027 or other off-cycle elections. Investors are looking for credibility in your political system, in your economic management system, in your policy environment, and each of these social engagement will point to them whether you have adopted a productive system that has integrity built into it, that is transparent. And if they think the elections are transparent and we're beginning to build a system that will ensure that opinions of voters count, then it will engender higher confidence, improve confidence on the economy. If the reverse is the case, it will now further erode the confidence both local investors and foreign investors have about the prospects, particularly the sovereign risk of the country, because what they'll be measuring when you talk about election processes, the sovereign risk if you have an unfair and unjust system, then they will begin to doubt whether that system can endure or whether it may unravel.
And I remember, earlier this year, the governorship and presidential polls, we know the NGX, the weekends after, and the weeks after, we saw the NGX reacted, positively to the elections previously. But do you have any expectations? These are off-cycle elections. Any expectations of some kind of impact to the local boss this morning?
Yeah, what actually happened was the NGX reacted negatively to the announcement of the election outcome. Immediately happened. But this is off-cycle election. The areas covered are not quite significant as to have impact on NGS. And again, the NGS in the past couple of months or weeks has learned or has grown to sidestep the local political environment and continue to be on a growth trajectory. We've seen an NGS that touched a 70 trillion naira, 70,000 index. We've seen an NGA that touched a capitalization of about 38 trillion naira, despite the high inflationary pressures, despite the devaluation of the currency or the depreciation of the local currency. So I would say that the NGS has developed some immunity around the political and economic environment of the country and will also sidestep these off-cycle elections.
Yeah, the NGX definitely showing a lot of resistance to the macro headwinds right now. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, Mr. Johnson Chukwu, MD, Cowrie Asset Management. It was great having your perspective today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, still to come, we'll discuss payment systems in Nigeria's chargeback fraud rises. That's in a moment. Just stay with us. Well, as transactions grow, so does risk of fraud. And recently, a company in Nigeria, payments infrastructure giant, to see it on the fund recovery run after a system glitch, saw the company lose about 30 billion. The 30 billion now to chargeback fraud. Well, let's get a sense of how chargeback fraud works and how businesses can protect themselves. Joining us for this conversation as Mr. Sarafuddin Fasashi, and he's a member, CIBN Subcommittee on Agent Banking Certification Program. Joining us right here in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning, my brother.
Yeah,
good morning.
So that's a huge sum.
It is huge.
Being lost to chargeback fraud. Break it down for us. How does it work?
Okay.
And how do you recover your money back, losing that kind of amount?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we must first of all commend the company that came to actually publicize his own, challenge that hit. It's not the first company. We just need to salute the courage of InterSwitch. It's going to actually help the industry to know that while we are celebrating growth in digital payment, while we are encouraging mass financial inclusion through digital, we also need to start discussing the challenges in digital payments. We also need to upgrade our policies, our regulations to support digital payments. Without that, company will continue to have issues. I am aware about more than 5 companies in Nigeria that have gone into distress because of chargeback, because of system glitch, and when you look at it, what is chargeback in its sense? Chargeback is when a customer does a transaction, a POS or ATM transaction, and maybe there is a network issue, it failed at that, and the customer get debited. So the customer is allowed to visit the bank and fill dispense error form. That form will now be scanned by his own bank to the acquiring bank, where you use the system, because it's a two-way thing. Where you are using your card, we call it acquiring bank. The one that issue your card is the issuing bank. So you use ATM from that another bank is servicing is the acquiring bank. You have issue with it, you have to go to your own bank, which is the issuing bank. So they will now send the form you fill to confirm if that transaction actually, what the status of that transaction, whether you get value or you didn't get value for that transaction. So, and the regulation as of today is that all these things should happen within the space of 72 hours. If you fill a form and your bank refuses to send it across, or your bank send it very late, maybe after 24 hours, you only have 24 hours left. So the acquiring bank will now review it. We also need to go and get in touch with the merchant or the agent where you use that transaction. Assuming that agent is not on seat or is unable to access his mail, automatically the time will pass and the system will debit that merchant and credit the customer that complained automatically. And today, the fraudsters, they are capitalizing on that policy gap, that automated, debit of an account. So they would have gotten value because they know that our system is very slow.
Who are the criminals in this process?
There are digital criminals outside there. In fact, they are growing every day. I am a bit concerned about this because my company has been hit like twice based on this same fraud. In 2018, we are operating at aggregator level. We have like 3 categories of level in payment system. You have the people the agents, the bank branches. Those are the front end. Then you have at the back end, you have the fintechs, you have the tech solution, you have the processors. At the back, you have the regulators, the policy that is supporting them. Now, at the front end, if you are struck by this kind of chargeback issue, the policy will not support you to recover it, because as of today, a bank cannot debit a customer account without the consent of that customer, whether you are a fraudulent customer, whether you are a real customer. So the bank has no power to debit you and reverse such transaction.
So because sometimes when I'm, making some transactions, it's really frustrating. You make a payment with your card, they debit you, but you see that it failed on the machine. But you're still debited, and sometimes it takes forever to get that money back. So I'm wondering, could a customer that suffered that also be a criminal in that?
Of course, there are some.
So am I supposed to, if I get the money back after a while, I got my money back, so how's the criminal activity going to happen?
The kind of syndicates that we have are people that are aware. Maybe they have worked in the banking sector before. They understand this flow. They understand the policy issue. They understand that there is also brain drain in the banking sectors. Very few people really have the knowledge of reconciliation in the banking sector as of today. So they are there to beat them. We have certain syndicates that, from the agent's point, you see them attempting transactions of, let's say, 200,000, 300,000 with the same card. The same. I had this experience last 2-3 years when somebody was using the same card for 200, 300, 400, 500. Those are intelligence reports that we are supposed to quickly escalate to the security agent or to the, to the bank. But unfortunately, the business is not interested in curbing crime, because it's also cost intensive. If a bank comes in today, who is going to finance the prosecution? Now, I have made an attempt from our own company. We reported a particular syndicate, and you have to mobilize police. You have to, they have to do tracking. You have to be the one to invest in that. They have to go to anywhere those criminals have to go and arrest them. You have to pay for hotels. You have to pay for all these. So, we're discouraged to follow that through. And this same syndicate, since 2018, just last week, I still observed their transactions. I still observe their transactions at some agent locations. And they have been able to beat a lot of organizations that are coming into the space. Because today, a lot of people are coming into POS business, payment business, without having the knowledge of reconciliation. Because it is a very scarce skill set. Human resources of most organizations, they only recruit, everybody into that sector without knowing that, you require specialized knowledge.
This is quite a big issue. How as a business, how do you protect yourself, from this kind of fraud? Because over the weekend, I did get that information about MTN. There was a glitch, in their system, and a lot of airtime loans, were wiped. From customer accounts. And I'm wondering, what's causing all these glitches? Is it the jackpot trend? Or they're losing a lot of, support for all of this, their services? Talk to us about it.
Okay. The fundamental issue here is actually the knowledge. The digital knowledge. If you look at the evolution of digital payments, it's actually happening, aggressively in the last 10 years in Nigeria. So let us also go and fact check how many trainings are being, conducted in that space in the last 10 years. Then who are the facilitators? You understand? Because as of today, whether we like it or not, digital knowledge is not in our schools. Digital knowledge is not in our training schools. They are outside there on the feed. So there is a need for a system to be able to harvest those brains. The best developers are not the first-class graduate of any institution in Nigeria. So the best reconciliation team, they are leaving the banks to jackpot syndrome, So, and they are not being replaced. There is no mechanism for transfer of knowledge. And every HR sees every employee today as the same. You understand? If you want to send anybody out of the system today, you don't consider that some skill sets are rare to replace. So today, and part of the challenge in the system is that everybody is now doing everything. When we first started, you have a segment. The banks are doing their own job. The banks should have advantage in reconciliation. the banks are jumping into mobile money space, into super agent space, which are actually meant for the fintechs, you know. So by going there, you need the skill sets in that space to cover for you. Super agents, they have already left the banking system. Now they are also registering their own licensed banks. So to back them up without having the knowledge of the banking system. You know, it's a knowledge issue, and our policy also. I think we are still operating with pre-digital era policies. So we should, today I have been privileged to have interaction with security agents. And today, out of several complaints in the police station in EFCC, more than 80% are digital. So how do you investigate digital cases when you yourself, you don't even understand, you know, the digital thing, you know? So it is also important that the security agent, the banking, we have to, all everybody will need to come together to admit the fact that there is a knowledge gap and there is a need for us to understand the flow. So so that we can curb these syndicates that are going around. And something that government needs to come to quickly arrest is who is going to finance prosecution. We are gathering intelligence at mobile money agents location across the country. We have mobile money association of Nigeria, AMBA, Association of Mobile Money and Bank Agents in Nigeria, that they have network of agents across Nigeria. So this intelligent information, where should they report to? Who will finance it? Who will take it off from there if they are able to report it?
Right. So much to unpack there. I guess at some point we should have a digital police, maybe going forward to track all of those illegal transactions. Thank you so much for your perspective today, Mr. Sarafuddin Fasashi, member CIBN Subcommittee on Agent Banking Certification Program. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I hope we don't get that chargeback fraud, growing even faster. But let's look at other conversations now. See, a lot of comments and pledges, have come out from the Saudi Africa Summit in Riyadh. The federal government said that the government of Saudi Arabia has pledged to invest in revamping the country's refineries to get them working and reforming the Central Bank of Nigeria. Well, let's get a sense of how this is going to work. Joining us now for this conversation is Mr. Nick Agule, oil and gas expert, joining me from the UK via Zoom. Great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to our viewers.
Fantastic. Great to have you. So, everyone talks about the success of Saudi Aramco, and, would definitely like to see the NNPCL, replicate such success. How did you see the announcement about Saudi Aramco investing in, Nigerian refineries? They did pledge over the weekend.
Well, I'll take the announcement with mixed feelings. The first is that here is our own company, the NNPC, almost 50 years old, unable to refine our crude, leading us to import petroleum products, opening us up to foreign exchange crisis, thereby petrol selling at 640, diesel selling at 1,200 and above in Nigeria unnecessarily. Now this company goes to a company that is like theirs. That's a mistake that a lot of Nigerians make. A lot of Nigerians think that the NNPC is the regulator of the oil industry. But the NNPC is not the regulator of the oil industry. The NNPC is a business. I mean, if you want to think about Shell, Chevron, Total, that is what the NNPC is. It's a business. And this business has been unable to perform its basic function, which is to refine crude oil for Nigerians, and decides to go to another business, which is Saudi Aramco, to say, come and help me. And this Nigerian business is almost 50 years old, like I said. So that is on the one side. On the other side, I'm happy. This is what it takes for Nigeria to wipe away the shame of being one of the largest crude producers in the world, but currently refining 0 barrels of crude oil. If that is what will take away that shame, and if that is what will now assure us of locally refined products, and with the employment generation that will come with it, with the security and guarantee of sufficient product, with the elimination of the cost of logistics of bringing in petroleum products from elsewhere in the world, if that's the benefit we are going to get, then let's go for this deal. So those are my two views, mixed feelings, as I said, about this deal.
Yeah, quite interesting. Mixed feelings there, but it is good news. Getting a huge company like Saudi Aramco, trying to give us tips on how they have become a success. But what do you think is in it for the Saudi government and Aramco investing in Nigerian refineries? What do they stand to gain?
Saudi Aramco is one of the world's biggest oil companies, oil businesses in the world. They are producing a large amount of crude oil, and they are refining. I mean, Saudi Arabia refines about 50% of their crude production. It's not like Nigeria that is exporting everything. So Saudi Aramco has been expanding its territorial business over time. So you can see now they've taken investments in China, in Southeast Asia, and the likes. And for them, coming to Nigeria will give them a footprint in the African oil and gas business or sector. So I believe that is what they are seeking. And basically, if they are going to bring in the capital, my suggestion would be this. The Nigerian oil and gas sector has been having issues, basically because of one problem. And that problem is the NNPC. If I can just take our viewers a little bit into the mechanics of oil production. You have the upstream, where oil is actually found in the ground and it is brought to the surface, produced to the surface. And then you have the downstream, which takes care of transporting that crude oil to a refinery, refining it, and then sending that crude oil to the marketing outlets where people can now drive in and buy petrol or buy diesel, buy gas. That's the downstream. The Nigerian oil and gas industry has been producing crude oil from 1950s to date. We have never heard one day that Nigeria has produced 0 barrels of crude oil. And that is because that business is essentially in the hands of international oil companies like the Mobil, the Chevron, the Shells in Nigeria. Coming to downstream, Nigeria decided to hand over downstream to the NNPC. And the NNPC has mismanaged this downstream over time. If I want to tell the viewers that the process of refining crude oil is very simple. You see those boys in the Niger Delta, what they are doing is re-refining. Because what is refining? Refining is you just cook this crude oil. You put that crude oil through a fiery furnace and heat it up to temperatures ranging above 300 degrees Celsius. And then you put that heated crude oil into a distillation unit. And at different boiling points, the petroleum products are coming out. So diesel is coming out, petrol is coming out, LPG is coming out, down to heavy crudes that will bring out things like asphalt that we use in making roads. And the NNPC have been unable to do this simple process for 50 years running, leading Nigeria to refine 0 barrels of crude oil. So the government cannot be doing the same thing and expecting different results. We simply need to take this in away from the NNPC and hand it over to those who can do this for us. Because you see, let me tell you one thing. Even in the upstream, where the NNPC is operating, since I was born, I have been hearing of the NNPC exploring for crude oil in Lake Chad, in the Benue Trough, in the Niger Trough. After all the billions have been sunk in by the NNPC, let us ask the question, how many barrels of crude oil have been produced by the NNPC in all of the exploration history they have undergone in the northern part of Nigeria? 0. So you see, if Nigeria's crude oil production was actually in the hands of the NNPC, we could probably be producing 0 barrels of crude oil today. So the NNPC is just the problem. And the government will do better to take away this thing away. Imagine, in the days of NITER, when NITER will be making promises to us and we will not be seeing funds. And then the MTNs came in, and now we can see funds everywhere. If government were trying to say, let me bring in MTN, but let MTN work with NITER to give funds to Nigerians, we probably will not have phones today. So the only thing that the government did was that they just took away the phone business from Nitel, handed it over to the MTNs and the Airtels and the Glo, and here we are. We have phones in the plentiful. So we saw these refineries before. There was a template for the sale of this. The Obasanjo government sold these refineries at the twilight of their administration. So the template for the sale of these refineries is there. That means investors were willing to pay for these refineries. The government only just needs to take these refineries away from the NNPC, brush up that template that was used to sell the refineries in the past, update it to current realities, and sell off these refineries so that Nigerians can now begin to have value for the investment that we have made in these refineries.
All right, definitely be looking out for what happens next, but we're definitely expecting some good stuff coming out from Aramco there. But let's look at here now. We see the Dangote refineries to get, they've secured a license to refine more than 300,000 barrels per day of Nigerian crude. And this process is, they say it's going to begin soon. How will this, impact the oil and gas industry in Nigeria? And tell me if Nigerians will be able to buy PMS, hopefully if there's a chance to be able to buy PMS cheaper, going forward.
It will be a significant moment for the Nigerian oil and gas industry the day that Dangote Refinery begins production. And, I did say somewhere else that the Dangote Refinery is a big refinery. It's a 650,000 barrels refinery. So even with these 300,000 barrels of crude oil agreement that they have signed, it's just going to be like half of that capacity. And probably then it means Dangote may have to supplement that with imported crude or source it from somewhere else. But I would have, if I was in the know, or if I had the benefit to even put in a word, I would have said there was no point having this single line 650,000 barrels refinery, because most refineries around the world, they will have like 200,000, 150,000, 300,000, and Dangote could have been a 2 to 3 trains refinery. Because if you have 650,000 in one train, anything that goes wrong with that train, the entire refinery is going to go down. And I think that has been the challenge that Dangote Refinery has been having in terms of trying to come on stream, despite the missed deadlines that they have had. Now, if they actually start producing, which I actually pray and hope they do, I expect that Nigeria should buy petroleum products coming off the Dangote Refinery cheaper. If not for anything, let us assume that the Dangote Refinery cost of refining is the same with a refinery in Singapore, where we go to buy, or in the US. If you subtract the transportation cost from Singapore or Rotterdam or Houston to Nigeria, together with the insurance, the port handling charges, and everything that comes into play with moving petroleum products from refineries abroad into Nigeria, if we subtract that alone and say, okay, we're not going to incur that, that alone should lead to some drop in the cost of petrol that we're buying right now. And I think that Nigeria, we're actually paying too much for petroleum products as it stands today. Because if you look at petroleum, if you look at prices on the pump elsewhere, like in the UK where I am now, in the US, you discover that about 40 to 50% of what you see on that pump is taxation by the governments of those countries.
All right.
So if you remove the tax element, and then you now say, okay, if without tax, how much will be the pump price? You discover that Nigerians are actually paying too much. And I know why they will be paying too much, because there are a lot of inefficiencies in the NNPC.
All right,
we
Mr.
are paying for part of those inefficiencies.
Yeah, definitely. I believe I'm paying too much for PMS because I know how it impacts my disposable income. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Mr. Nick Agule, oil and gas expert. Join us from UK. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and have a nice day.
You too. All right, let's take a look at what's happening with the markets. Now we have Willie Bond coming on with the details of brand new, fresh week in the markets right here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
So, Ladi, do you want to give a prediction for the market since you're in the stock market this week? I want to hear your prediction. And you better be spot on the money.
I see mixed sentiment coming this week.
Mixed sentiment.
Mixed sentiment, yeah.
Be safe. Very good.
Safe.
Good position.
Right.
Right call. So we're going to start off with the FX markets, where we see forex markets. We did mention that earlier Business Morning, reversing, snapping up 4 weeks of gains. Now we saw that reversal for the first time, mentioned 4 weeks now, but back to, the decline. 44.39 million units, $1 million fell from the forex total gross forex reserves last week to $33.42 billion as of November the 9th now. But that didn't affect the activities in the forex total turnover at the forex market. We did see the appreciation in total turnover of transactions carried out at the FX spot, forwards, and futures market rose by 25.16% week on week to over $600 million. Now, looking at further breakdown, we see that for the spot markets, we see it up by 24.33% to 654.61 million units. But we're going to bring in Tobechukwu Ikpe, fixed income dealer, Access Bank, to give us more insights as to how the markets played out last week and what to expect this week. Good morning, Tobechukwu. It's good to have you on the show.
Good morning, Will. Thank you for having me.
And Tobechukwu, just looking at it, it's all about the FX right now. We see last week the CBN talking about, paying off that FX backlog, 6 billion, and even Moody's, doubting if they're going to be able to meet that. Now, the Saudi government has now promised to provide a substantial deposit of FX to boost our liquidity and also support the ongoing forex reforms by the Central Bank of Nigeria. How do you think all of this coming together, how do you think the market is going to, accept this or is going to assimilate this, and what are expectations as a result of this announcement?
Okay. So last week Friday, as you said, there was a meeting between a delegation from Nigeria, which included the President Bola Tinubu and the Crown Prince and his own ministers in Saudi Arabia at the Africa Investment Summit. And part of that meeting was what you just said, this Saudi government committing to support Nigeria's FX with liquidity. So for that, what the market expects is, it's good news. It's a good thing to hear. But we've had several commitments and promises and plans put in place by this government. They have tried to follow market-friendly reforms. We've also heard them talk about more funds coming in from World Bank, about 3 billion, and that 3.5 coming from Frexim, and plans to securitize 7 billion worth of NNG dividends in order to raise FX liquidity. So this is an additional commitment from the Saudi government, according to the Information Minister for Nigeria, Mohammed Idris, that the Saudi government has committed to provide a substantial deposit of FX to the Nigerian government to support our forex liquidity issues. So in line with this, we see that markets should anticipate more flows coming in the market, and we've seen some action last week Friday as well, where the CBN resumed settlement of some of the backlog, estimated about $6.7 billion to banks. For that, what they delivered was not so much, just maybe about 5% of what was outstanding. But these commitments should raise more liquidity for the government to deliver. What the market needs now is no longer more promises or plans. We've seen they put in place a lot of plans and commitments to do it. What the market needs now is action. And market is still looking for that consistency. They put up some positive flags, some green flags, with their return to orthodox policies like raising interest rates, liberalizing the FX market, and making it a willing buyer, willing seller market. But we need that consistency to give market confidence that they will stay on track to deliver their promises.
Thank you so much. What we do need, as you said, is action and not more promises. And, they stay with their primary mandate of monetary policy, monitoring that and ensuring price stability in the market. Thank you so much, Tobechukwu Ikpe, fixed income dealer, Access Bank, for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you for having me.
So I just want to look quickly, and there's something interesting that we did last week about, the traction in terms of price movement for stocks. We did see that movement, and then if you look, there it is on the screen there. If you had Japan Gold, I don't know the investors, if you had Japan Gold as of January 2023, but year to date, you had invested 1 million, you'd probably have had 9.5 million naira in gains and returns by now. And if you had CWG, you'd have 8.2 million, and it has MRS, that's the oil and gas sector, you'd have 7.8 million naira. I remember I said if you had invested 1 million naira as of January this year. So it's very profitable to be in the equities market. It's not just hearsay now. And Transcorp, if you had been in Transcorp Hotel and invested 1 million naira as of January, you'd be looking at 7.1 million naira now, laddie. So this is just one. I'm just looking at it and I'm like, my mouth is open.
Wish I had 1 million January 1st. Maybe I would have.
Yes, I think maybe we should plan towards it next January. 1 million and have one of the stocks,
Yeah, with inflation, with currency devaluation, cost of living crisis. I hope I have 1 million by 2024.
I remember you did say that the fuel you're buying is biting into you're taking into your disposable income.
So much eating my disposable income right now.
Truly.
Thank you so much.
But that's it.
Thank you so much, Will, there, giving us the details from the local boss and the fixed income market and FX market right now. Let's look at other markets now. Let's take a look at what's happening with Bitcoin there. If you look at the color, what the color on the screen is for Monday morning. You can get that color on the screen there. We'll see it's mostly red. If you take that, you see it's red. We have all through there, starting off this week, Monday, 36,992 for Bitcoin. And we'll see some pockets of green there, but we'll see obviously there's some profit taking going on this Monday. Let's look at the sentiments right now. What kind of sentiment we have? Is it greed? Yeah, it's greed. Market is still very greedy right now, 72 points over 100. Talking about the fear greed index in the market, showing that traders are still quite bullish. Let's look at the top cryptocurrencies we track. We'll see Bitcoin holding there, $36,992 this morning, down 0.69%. So we're seeing pullbacks all through it. Bitcoin, Cardano, the biggest drop there, 2.08%, and XRP, 65 cents, down 1.63%. Let's bring in Rume Ofi now, financial market analyst. Hello, Rume. Good morning. Good morning, Rume. Great to have you. So we're seeing news from Coinbase this morning. They said they found themselves in another regulatory debacle. This time, not with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, but this time is in Russia. Tell us more about this.
Yes, this has been happening for now, and they have been fined about $650,000. That's about 1 million rubles. It has to do more on data privacy. This is what you have with centralized exchange platforms. You have to provide your data to the authority, and this goes against what the crypto industry really stands for. So it's a very serious issue that has to be resolved at some point. So it now depends on what Coinbase is ready to give customers data and how data are being saved and how they're protected, and a couple of other systems that has to do with the local operations in that country.
And we see on more news now, cryptocurrency wallet Ton, they've been added to Telegram, globally. That's that app there that people normally use for chats. That's a Telegram app. Does it mean you can have a Ton wallet, on the app once you have you're active on Telegram? Is that what it means?
Ladi, I must tell you for a fact that I really love the recent U-turn that the market has actually given us, the crypto industry, from being regarded as what criminals do use to what now Wall Street is chasing after, right? But to say a few, the Telegram wallet works this way. When you have the Telegram account, like there's other social media, there's a bot that gives you access where you could always buy and save your crypto asset rather than going to open your conventional wallet, either using an exchange platform. Now you don't have to use, because there's already a rail for you to go and just have the wallet on your Telegram. And Telegram has really grown. I think they're headed towards 1 billion users right now, and a lot of people need to have that easy access to use crypto, and Telegram is bringing that right now, and it's making a whole lot of sense.
Right, we'll definitely be tracking their progress so far. But what are you expecting this week for the crypto market? Are you still expecting bullish sentiment for Bitcoin price action? this week?
Yes, a bit because now the accounts holding 1 million Bitcoin have actually tripled in even though we're having a bear market right now from 23,795 to 81,925 right now. So it shows that there's interest, and maybe because of Wall Street, and it makes a whole lot of sense because of the U-turn. And we're also happy that a couple of things are coming good, but it could be a bit pushback because the US government is going to probably shut down this weekend. But let's see what happens.
Well, quite a lot to look out for. Definitely, we've seen bullish sentiment on the NGX and the crypto market this year with all the macro headwinds, of inflation and currency devaluation. We'll keep watching out for what happens in 2024. Thank you so much, Rume Ofi, financial market analyst. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
And yeah, that's how the crypto market is looking today and all the markets we. And to wrap on our program, don't forget to join us at 1:30 on Business Incorporated. More updates and developments in the world of business. Also, visit www.channelcv.com for more updates. Thank you for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. Have a profitable day.